I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that our own love and nostalgia for MapleStory could ultimately end up leading to its demise if our community doesn't figure out a thing or two about nostalgia. I obviously am a sucker for nostalgia. My channel is built off of the backs of crappy 20-year-old games that we loved as kids. But I also know that in order for us to have a successful, long-term version of MapleStory Classic World, the community will need to remove its rose-colored glasses and realize that it's not actually 2005 anymore. In my previous video, which was super well received, thank you guys, your number one disagreement with me was regarding travel timers in old school MapleStory. For every person that agreed with me that travel timers should be removed as a quality of life update, there were about 20 more disagreeing with me, saying that the travel timers were essential to old school MapleStory due to the socialization aspect of the waiting time. This got me thinking about the high level vision for MapleStory Classic World and to, well, this video. If we simply recreated the game from 2005 and just tried to re-experience it again, sure, it'd be a fun couple weeks, but I don't think the game would have actual long-term success. I know I probably won't change anyone's minds because we're humans and that's just tough, but still, here's why I think that our own nostalgia could end up killing MapleStory Classic World. While all of your comments let me know that I might actually be wrong and I'm willing to consider changing my mind, I think that the time travel argument is like the perfect example of what the community wants versus what it thinks it wants. If I asked anyone listening to this, would you want MapleStory Classic World to continue adding new players, stealing them from other MMOs, growing their own player base over the long term, and have another 20-year-long successful MMO? Every single one of you would say yes. But if I asked, should we remove the dice rolling from character creation? Some of these people start saying no, that we should keep the dice for no other reason than it was nostalgic to click on some fucking virtual dice. For the sake of everyone who's not a 30-plus-year-old basking in nostalgia like myself, we need to move on from some of the things that were actually tedious and you only remember fondly because you were a kid who had no respect for the concept of time. This goes beyond just clicking on the dice for 5 to 10 minutes. If a new player gets bored rolling these dice and just stats into whatever, their entire character is ruined, and they likely wouldn't know it until many hours down the line. We have to set new players up for success, and not just cater to us basement-dwelling losers who love this Weeaboo side-scrolling game. If you use 1 ounce of critical thinking, you'd realize keeping the dice rolling in this game is actually so stupid. This isn't 2005, and new players are going to quit with the hundreds of other options where you don't waste your time clicking on a dice that can eventually ruin your character. Okay, I'm sorry for crashing out. Let's talk about the travel timer socialization argument for real now. Everyone who left a comment letting me know how essential the time travels were to old school MapleStory due to how much socialization went down back then, I hear you. I know. I was there even. I died to the Balrog. I joined guilds. I F2'd. I F5'd. All on the way to Orbis. Like, I get it, dude. But you all missed the memo that in MapleStory Classic World, there's a 24/7 ship to Orbis, and its name is Discord. I'm not just saying that to be a snarky asshole, even though I am being a snarky asshole. Hear me out. While I'd love for us all to get on that ship together again and live it up like it's 2005 again, it's not 2005. Maybe a lot of you guys haven't been playing MMOs in the modern day, but the socialization aspect of MMOs is largely gone, and unfortunately, it's not because old school MapleStory doesn't exist. The times of MMOs baking in socialization into gameplay is gone because the world is far more interconnected than it's ever been. MMOs used to be unique because of the large player counts and large groups of people to talk to, which was pretty unique for the internet at the time. However, in 2025, that is just simply not true. At any time, you can drop a message in the general chat of the MapleStory Discord and get a response from someone. It is the largest ship to Orbis that you could imagine. There's Twitter and Reddit and whatever else where you can always get the socialization aspect of the MapleStory community. Anytime, any place. Whereas in 2005, you were forced to have all of this important social stuff within the client. But what's crazy is that old school MapleStory can actually overcome the changing times a little bit. But it's not going to be by forcing players into sitting on the map and socializing, because everyone will just alt-tab and go into their Discord groups in 2025. I've seen it in every game I play. Nobody talks in games anymore. You won't lose out on some nostalgia if you don't sit on the ship. Just playing an official version of classic MapleStory in the 2020s will get the job done. Anyone who's been playing the other classically revived MMO knows. They definitely still capture the nostalgia. Old school MapleStory can actually overcome the genre-wide issue of MMOs not being social anymore with some of its better systems, like party quests. Party quests are good content, they give good XP, and they have good rewards, but most importantly, they capture the essence of that classic MMO social experience while also progressing your account. Expand on that. Make more party quests. Make more content that requires socialization and party play, but also advances your account. Sitting on a ship and forcing you to socialize while your character is locked on a map isn't good content to me, especially not in 2025. And according to the comments, maybe my opinion is just wrong on this. The endgame grind of old school MapleStory is not sustainable, and given typical old school balancing, any time that is spent traveling is wasted in my opinion. This is why, if you saw my last video, we should have a polling system within the community of Classic World. Are the large number of comments representative of how the community feels as a whole, or are they a vocal minority, as we've seen in other games like Old School RuneScape? If you've watched my Maple content before, you'll know I always draw comparisons because, well, you should probably learn from the successful releases of things like RuneScape and WoW Classic. MapleStory has the advantage of learning from a now decade-old market of re-releasing classic MMOs, and the jury is definitely out that 100% catering to nostalgia does not work long term. Last thing on travel timers before I move on, there were some great middle-of-the-road ideas in the comment section in the last video, such as having you pay mesos for fast travel, but allowing the slow travel to be the old-fashioned way and either be free or the same amount of mesos. I'd totally be down for that, some sort of like middle-of-the-road idea where everyone wins. Anyways, the other classic MMOs? This reminds me of about 10 years ago, when Old School RuneScape released. They were very true to their initial patch that they released on. It was some update from 2007. They largely left this patch untouched for a long time outside of bug fixes. I feel like based on comments, that's what a lot of you MapleStory players would enjoy. Just put out the old game and let it be. Let us live in the nostalgia. When Old School RuneScape did this, the game saw a peak on release and it slowly dwindled to an unsustainable point. This is a very common trend with new game releases. A lot of people try it out, realize it's not for them, and move on to something else, and a small player count remains after it's all said and done. Well, Old School RuneScape in 2025 is now in the top 3 largest Western MMOs, and that's because they actually decided to develop on top of their existing game, not just recreating that nostalgic experience from 2007, rebuilding that experience from the foundation of 2007 instead. Classic World of Warcraft, which is another top MMO in the West, has opted to re-release classic versions of their MMO in the last few years. However, they don't do really any new development on top of those expansion releases, and guess what's happening? Players are playing through the content nostalgically, and then shortly after, they're bored as hell and they leave. In fact, there's actually a mass exodus of players from Classic WoW to Old School RuneScape happening right now, because Blizzard is kind of handling WoW Classic like some of you guys want to handle Classic World in the comments. It terrifies me to think that Nexon could listen to that and essentially kill this game before it ever gets started. You know what else terrifies me? That you've watched this entire video so far and you haven't clicked any of those silly little buttons underneath the video that help more people learn about the channel and MapleStory Classic World. Appreciate you. The Classic WoW community currently has been talking about something called WoW Classic Plus, which is basically what I requested in the previous MapleStory video that I made, where I stated that the game should start from one specific patch and then should be built as a combination of re-releasing old content and creating new content, adding quality of life, yada yada yada. So basically, what I'm saying is, let's try and be Old School RuneScape and not WoW Classic, so we have longevity, player growth, sustainability, and in a few years, a super fun late game for Old School Maple that still feels authentic and nostalgic. There's one last thing that I want to talk about in regards to nostalgia blinding the player base into thinking the game should be a way that it shouldn't be. Let me talk to you about the Grand Exchange. When Old School RuneScape released, there wasn't a Grand Exchange, or auction house as it's called in other games. Back in 2007 and prior, players just had to type to each other to sell things, just like they would in the free market in MapleStory. While reading through the comments, I saw quite a few people saying that they shouldn't bring the market board or auction house or whatever. I was wondering, did the present day MapleStory add that? I'm not sure why else multiple people would bring it up. Anyhow, when Old School RuneScape first released, it seemed the vast majority of the player base, at least vocally, didn't want the Grand Exchange to be added to the game. The arguments were actually a very similar one to the travel timers. They were nostalgic for having to buy and sell their items through the social MMO aspect of the game, as opposed to through an NPC, which was understandable. After the months went by and players got more jaded to this concept of having to stand around and merch for hours when we are all adults and would rather spend that time progressing our accounts because we have families and jobs and shit, Jagex would eventually ask a poll question: should we add the Grand Exchange to the game? And a super majority of players said yes, and the Grand Exchange was added to the game. 23% of players voted against the GE, and those 23% of players were really loud and really vocal. But it turned out the majority of us just wanted to play a better version of the game. And we can just use the tools that 2025 has provided us to get our social fix from anywhere in the world at any time, and not just on the ship to Orbis. Ultimately, like I've said, they should just poll the travel timers, and if I'm the one that's in the loud, vocal 23% minority, then well, I'll just shut up and I'll eat it. and that's fine. I'll sit on the ship and I'll alt-tab and watch YouTube videos or something. It is what it is. I think that's a pretty good place to wrap this up. I love MapleStory, and I love that you guys are fueling the passion down below in the comments and giving us stuff to talk about when, frankly, we don't have anything to talk about because there's no actual news on Classic World out there. I just ask that we don't let the nostalgia that fuels us lead to the death of one of our favorite beloved childhood games. Thank you all for watching, and thank you as always to the Tier 2 channel members. You can join the channel below for as little as $1 single. Or just subscribe and like the video and all that cool YouTube shit. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace out, guys. See ya.